Hi, everybody. I'm Mike. This is a bunch of Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are listening to The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards and fire up your fingers. Time to join the conversation.
Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. Even though there's like nobody out there in the chat. So hello to you anyway. It is Friday, January 25th, 2019, and you are listening to The Right of the People. There's a lot of skullduggery going on in the 2A world right now. We got some good news, we got some bad news, we got some news. That's how it goes. Hopefully we can get some folks in here tonight. I don't know if my notifications went out or not. Normally the chat is kind of hopping before I start the show, but nobody's out there today. Squib's first in the chat. He's on the panel. So I don't know. Does that count?
Well, I can tell you this. Right after you said, let's go live, I went ahead and clicked on YouTube, and you know how it gives you suggestions before it'll give you your subscriptions?
Yeah.
There was some show about greeting cards that was live, and I'm going, seriously? Greeting cards?
Greeting cards?
So they're all over there watching a live show about greeting cards.
Well,
obviously.
Okay, that's important. That's important stuff right there.
Hey, when you care enough to send the very best.
No kidding. All right, let me go ahead and go through the panel here. We got Ryan from ZRUS Outdoors. How you doing, sir?
Hey, man, thanks again for having me. I'm posting this chat to my YouTube post as well. So let's see if we can get some people in here.
Cool, thank you. As always, we got Squibload here. How you doing, sir?
Doing good. I already locked the doors, taking out the trash, and you always remind me what time and what day it is, so I appreciate that.
Well, I got to be good for something anyway, right? Stealth Hunter, how you doing, sir?
Doing good. Appreciate the invite. Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Out in the chat, we got Jason Stewart, 100 Shot the Unit, Warsaw Patriot, Rich White, John Z. People are starting to roll in now. For those of you that haven't been here before, welcome. Hopefully you like what you hear. I tend to, this show is about the Second Amendment news and politics. I present the news of the week that has happened in the Second Amendment world and discuss it with the panel and with those of you out there in the chat. So hopefully you find some value in what we're doing here tonight. Warsaw Patriot says his state is under attack and he is not happy. Let me guess, you are in Illinois? Is that what I'm gathering from this? Either that or New York, one of the two. John Z says we're all under attack. Yeah, I have to agree, sir. Have to agree. Let me take a refresh over there on the Gun Channels side, which, by the way, if you are not a member of Gun Channels, because this show is simulcast over there on Gun Channels, you should go ahead and go on over and join up. It is absolutely free. You do not have to be a content creator. Gun Channels is sort of the water cooler of the internet Second Amendment community. You can find someone to talk with and something to talk about over there 24/7, 365. They never close. So, go on over, sign up. It's a really cool place to be part of the community. Warsaw Patriot says, yeah, he's a resident of Illinois and proud of it. My state is my home. Good for you, sir. You have a fight ahead of you, though. And I'm trying to make my state better for the greater good. Good. They need to have more Illinois residents doing that very same thing. And we are going to talk about Illinois tonight. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and go over the greater national news that we have. And let's just hop right into it. This is a piece. I'm going to read two stories about this. This first one's by Pete Williams. And for the life of me, I can't remember where I found this at. But the Supreme Court takes up gun rights case for the first time in a decade. The Supreme Court on Tuesday agreed to hear a challenge to New York City's restriction on transporting handguns outside the city limits. It's the first time in a decade that the court has agreed to hear a case on the nature of gun rights, this time on the nature of rights outside the home. Under a city law, residents who have a permit to own a handgun can take it outside the home to a city shooting range, provided the weapon is unloaded and in a locked container. But they cannot take their guns outside the city limits. New York imposed the restriction after concluding that it was too difficult to determine whether someone found to have a gun in the car was taking it to a local shooting range or one elsewhere. 3 residents challenged the law. 2 of them said they wanted to take their guns to ranges outside the city, and the third wanted to take his gun back and forth to a second home in Hancock, New York. They argued that the law violated their Second Amendment rights. The city has presented precisely 0 empirical evidence that transporting an unloaded gun locked up in a container separate from its ammunition, an activity that federal law affirmatively protects, poses any material safety risk, they said in a legal brief. They also said the city law discourages residents from going to shooting ranges to gain proficiency in using their handguns. Lower courts upheld the restriction, and the city urged the Supreme Court not to take the cases and instead to let those rulings stand. New York has 7 shooting ranges, providing ample facilities for those wishing to improve their skills. And anyone wealthy enough to own a second home can afford to buy a second handgun and keep it there, the city said. Since the ruling in 2008 that the Constitution guarantees a right to keep a handgun at home for self-defense, the Supreme Court has declined to hear challenges to other gun laws. Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito has said the court's reluctance to take other gun cases means their colleagues are treating the Second Amendment as a, quote, second-class right. So that was a piece, I think that was from NPR. This piece is from AWR Hawkins in Breitbart. The Supreme Court on Tuesday granted review in this first Second Amendment case in almost a decade, a case supported by the National Rifle Association and perhaps signaling what to expect from the new membership of the Supreme Court. New York City law forbids residents from owning any handguns without a permit, and that permit allows the holder to possess guns only in their home or en route to or from one of 7 shooting ranges in the city. A gun owner at only 7 shooting ranges in a city of that huge, and the city thinks that's just ample. That's fine. Yeah, right. A gun owner cannot transport a firearm outside their home for any other purpose, even if it is unloaded and locked in a case in the trunk of a car. The New York State Rifle and Pistol Association and several of its members sued in federal court, arguing that this regulation is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court held in District of Columbia versus Heller that the Second Amendment secures an individual right, but the 2010 case involved only a law-abiding citizen seeking to have a handgun in his privately owned home for self-defense. The court further held in McDonald versus Chicago that the Second Amendment right to bear arms is a fundamental right and thus extends to state and local governments through the 14th Amendment. But again, that 2010 involved a law-abiding citizen seeking to keep a handgun in the home. That is essentially all the Supreme Court has done with the Second Amendment thus far. The court has repeatedly turned down petitions for review, called a petition for a writ of certiorari, in several major cases over the subsequent 9 years. Some experts speculated that Justice Anthony Kennedy, who was the 5th and thus decisive vote in Heller and McDonald, was reluctant to take any additional steps on gun rights. Without his vote, neither side of the gun debate could move the needle in either direction. Some legal strategists wondered if Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who has a judicial record supporting gun rights, now sitting in Kennedy's seat, would break the paralysis over Second Amendment jurisprudence. It appears that the answer might be yes. Lead counsel in the case is former U.S. Solicitor General Paul Clement, who also was one of the lawyers who argued in both Heller and McDonald. Clement is one of the most accomplished Supreme Court advocates in American history, having argued over 90 cases before the justices. Clement argues that New York City's regulation violates the Second Amendment, the Constitution's Commerce Clause, and the 14th Amendment's right to interstate travel. The NRA is centrally involved in the case. The New York State Rifle and Pistol Association is the NRA's official state affiliate in the Empire State. The case will likely be argued in October, with a decision expected sometime before July 2020. The case is New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus New York, number 18-280 in the Supreme Court of the United States. Finally, the Supreme Court decided to take up a Second Amendment case. Maybe the days of treating the Second Amendment as a second-class right are over. I hope so. You guys have any hope for this one?
I mean, I think it's obviously a good step. Is it something that's like on Trump's side saying, hey, we're doing something about it, even though we banned the bump stocks and all this other crap? So I'm still waiting to be impressed.
I'm hopeful. I'm not, 100%. Yay, this is great. Everything's going to be wonderful and we can ride unicorns and all that garbage. But it is definitely looking promising. The very fact that they're taking cases now that involve the Second Amendment, I think bodes well. The last 10 years has been pretty barren on that front. That's a fact.
I mean, yeah, I'm definitely hopeful about it. I would just want to see something actually come about of it. You know what I mean? I just don't think it's until something happens or we see some result or progress or something, and then it's just being hopeful to me anyway.
I think PNW Woods phrases it well when he says cautious optimism. I'm going to reserve final judgment to see how the court rules. How that breaks down. Maybe between now and then we will get another Supreme Court justice on the panel if Ginsburg should decide to retire between now and then, and that'll really cement my hopes. I'll feel a lot better about it if that's the case. I want to welcome Kingpin to the panel. He must have hopped in while I was blathering on. So welcome, sir. How you doing?
Oh, doing all right. Thanks for having me. Sorry, I missed the beginning.
Oh, no problem, man. Better late than never. Michael Sain says there's a Pro 2A rally March 27th in Springfield, Illinois. So if you are an Illinois resident, you should probably go there and make your voice heard.
I, along with about 5 of my friends and my wife and possibly anybody else that I can grab along, will probably be there documenting it for the channel and everything, and just to show the support as well.
All right.
I mean, I still need a link as to where everything is, whoever is coordinating all this, just to kind of get on with it. But I heard there was going to be one. I just wasn't sure exactly, who's leading it and what all the details are. So if you got that, if you can link it, that'd be perfect.
I do not, but I'm going to send a link to Mike Sains out there. He seems to know what's going on. So
yeah, he put his email address.
Yeah, I'm fixing to shoot a link to him, so maybe he can fill us in on what's going on out there. Yep. Hey, Mike, I just sent you an email, so check your email, brother.
Yeah, because I mean, communication with everybody is going to make this as big as we can get it. So if we can communicate with everybody, if we can get everybody involved and grab everybody we can and say, hey, here's what's going down. It could get stupid if these laws pass. Then
oh yeah,
just try to make it as big as possible.
For those that don't know, that's also one of the stories I wanted to talk about. Is Illinois has introduced 2 bills that are pretty egregious and horrible. Let's see. This is from this is a release from the NRA-ILA. Bill introduced to ban many firearms and accessories in Illinois. Legislation has been introduced in the Illinois State Senate for a comprehensive ban on many types of firearms and accessories. Senate Bill 107 is currently in the Senate Assignments Committee, awaiting a referral to a committee that will consider it. Please contact your state senator and urge them to oppose SB 107. SB 107, sponsored by Senator Julie Morrison, Democrat from 29, would brand many modern semi-automatic rifles, semi-automatic handguns, and shotguns commonly owned by law-abiding citizens as, quote, assault weapons, and ban them along with spare parts and accessories. Some examples to be banned include any semi-automatic rifle or handgun that can accept a detachable magazine greater than 10 rounds in capacity and has one or more features, such as a protruding grip for the support hand, a folding, telescoping, or thumbhole stock, a handguard, or a muzzle brake or compensator. Any semi-automatic shotgun that has one or more of the features, such as the ability to accept a detachable magazine, a folding, telescoping, or thumbhole stock, or a protruding grip for the support hand. Any fixed magazine semi-automatic rifles or handguns greater than 10 rounds in capacity, and fixed magazine semi-automatic shotguns greater than 5 rounds in capacity. So, you know, that Marlin Model 60 that you have, that can accept more than 10 rounds. Buy. That's an assault weapon. Any shotgun with a revolving cylinder. Do they even still make those? Any part or accessory that would configure a firearm as above. Any firearm listed here by name or their duplicates. These firearms are commonly owned by law-abiding citizens for various purposes such as self-defense, competitive shooting, recreational shooting, and hunting. The proscribed features simply allow shooters of many sizes and physical builds to safely control and operate firearms and do not fundamentally change the fact that semi-automatic firearms only fire one shot per action of the trigger. For example, telescoping stocks adjust the length of the firearms to fit shooters of different statures, and muzzle brakes and compensators reduce felt recoil, something that benefits all shooters. In addition to managing heat buildup, handguards also allow shooters to hold firearms in a way that does not negatively affect accuracy. SB 107 would have limited exemptions, such as allowing those who lawfully own banned firearms prior to register and keep them. Oh, how good of them. This exemption would not extend to banned parts or accessories, so owners would not be able to keep spare parts and accessories to reconfigure their firearms for different uses. But wait, there's more. Here is, I have a notice from the Illinois General Assembly on the FOID social media accounts. It says that, let's see, what is it? It is bill status of HB 0888. The synopsis of it is that it amends the Firearm Owners Identification Card Act, provides that the Department of State Police shall conduct a search of the purchaser's social media accounts available to the public to determine if there is any information that would disqualify the person from obtaining or require revocation of a currently valid firearm owner's identification card. It provides that each applicant for a firearm owner's identification card shall furnish to the Department of State Police a list of every social media account. Big Brother would be proud. Hey, Michael, welcome.
That's right, man. You know, people keep talking about SHTF. SHTF is happening right now, man. This is complete bull crap. This is beyond infringement. These people are literally saying, we're going to come and kick in your door, take whatever we want for whatever reason. I mean, you've seen these people on social media, how triggered they are, how emotionally unstable and mentally unstable these people are. So they will use any reason as a threat to them to use as a reason to tell these people, hey, this person's a threat. Go and kick in his door.
You know, that's the same.
Warsaw, check your email, buddy.
My cousin is former military, and he had, you know, dealings with a chick that's kind of crazy, which they all are, but he was a special kind of crazy. So basically, anybody can go to law enforcement and say, hey, I need a restraining order on this guy or whatever it may be. What he had to deal with, basically, the police showed up to his door and said, hey, we heard you have firearms. Do you have a FOID card? Yes, we do. Yes, I have a firearm. Let me see your FOID card and give me your firearms, and you can have everything back as soon as everything's all fixed out. My cousin had to sit for I don't know how many months to almost a year before he could actually get everything back, just because he got drugged through the system because she said he was dangerous because he had a gun. It's like, it's kind of along the same lines as that. If anybody can just throw a restraining order on, then anybody can say, hey, you got a beard and you're dangerous. You know what I mean? Or you got to Make America Great Again hat, you're dangerous.
Yep.
That's why they fixed it with the red flag law, because it's a lot harder to get a restraining order than most people think. And you can get denied for various different reasons to get a restraining order. The red flag law is almost instantaneous. And it doesn't come with a restraining order either.
Well, it's just kind of simply like a blanket statement saying that this guy is just dangerous without actually having to prove it, because now you actually have to prove that you're not dangerous.
Yeah, and that's been my problem with the whole red flag laws from the get-go, is that they ignore due process. They rob you of due process. It seems like it puts the burden of proof on you instead of the government, where it should be.
Yeah, and you know what makes it hard about that is it's the same concept as if somebody says, "Oh, hey, you're dangerous." No, I'm not. And then they steal your wallet because you're dangerous, and you punch them in the face. Well, see, I told you he was dangerous. So when people show up to your doorstep to take your guns, and you're like, "Oh, hold on, what's your reasoning?" You know, if anything goes down, yeah, I told you he was dangerous. Never mind the fact that armed people showed up to your doorstep to take whatever it is that they thought somebody else says you shouldn't have.
Exactly. You know, these, again, and I'll say it again, and I'm sure I'll say it many, 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 many times in the future. Gun control is never about the gun. It's always about the control.
You know who would agree with that last sentiment? I'm not too sure who the guy, not Michael, I know who Michael is, but the other gentleman that's with us. But who would agree with that sentiment? Brian, nice to meet you, brother.
Hey, you too.
But you know who would agree with that sentiment 100%? Mr. Gary M. Willis. Why can't he agree with that? Because he's dead, thanks to a red flag law.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was actually going to bring him up when I was referring to that, but I couldn't think of his name.
I've made it my life's mission to every time I hear the words red flag law, I'm going to say his name.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't look into exactly what the story was about, didn't read into it. I knew as soon as I saw the headline, I knew exactly what it was about. So I kind of didn't have to read into it, but because I didn't know all the logistics about it, I just kind of didn't bring it up. But it is one of those things that the fight is actually coming to your doorstep. What do you do? And me and my wife had a long conversation about it last night because of Illinois' new laws that are trying to come out. It's like, well, what do we do? I know what I stand for. You know, I know what I believe in. Now it's time to act on it. You know, so what do you do? Then you have to, as a family man, start talking about, do I let somebody come in and take what I have purchased, what my own investments are for protection or investment or whatever it may be, and let somebody take it away because some politician thought that I was a criminal for some reason because I own these things. When in reality, they're trying to combat something else or earn their next vote. It makes me look bad because I own these firearms. So now you get into this deep conversation of what you're going to do. What would you do? Well, what should we do? Well, here's what I believe in. This is what I'm going to do. You know, so when it's brought to your doorstep, everything comes to reality as to you watch it all on social media unfold and you like it and you comment on it. And then all of a sudden it's at your doorstep physically. What do you do?
Well, that's what Kingpin was talking about, was that gentleman in Maryland who got awoken at 5 a.m. to the police banging on his door, coming to confiscate his firearms. He struggled with them, and they shot him dead.
Yeah, that's the gist of it that I caught.
On that gentleman, when they came to his door, and this is what I have read. If anyone knows different, please correct me. They didn't come to his door with a warrant to collect his firearms.
No.
They came to his door with a summons to show up to court for the hearing, which is part of the bill that was passed for the red flag law. They decided they were going to take his firearms because they saw he had one. They made that decision on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And that is even more dangerous. They were supposed to do one thing, deliver a piece of paper saying show up for court. Nothing more and nothing less. They chose to do different, from what I have gathered. If I am mistaken, please correct me on that.
And this gentleman ended up dead from it. Warsaw Patriot, how you doing, sir?
A little aggravated, but so far so good.
Yeah, you seem like you're a little bit fired up on this one.
Well, I mean, honestly, if you're going to propose a bill that's just going to, make every law-abiding citizen to a criminal, you might as well just say it to my face. I mean, really, this is just something that I've never seen before. Just pop out of nowhere and say, hey, we're just going to tell you that you're all criminals now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have the choice to be a criminal or not. You can comply and do what they ask you to do and, allow them to dictate what your life's going to be, or you can not comply and then you're a criminal, I guess is what they're telling you.
Well, here's what I've always been saying, or here's what I've been saying as of late about the liberal agenda. The bottom line to their agenda is to create two people in this nation, victims or criminals. If you comply to their overreach standard, then you're a victim. And if you don't, then you're a criminal.
Yeah. Again, gun control is never
about
about the gun. It's always about the control. Period. Go ahead, Kingpin. I'm sorry.
My fault. No, I had my headset. It wasn't plugged in, so my bad. I'm sorry to talk over you.
No, go right ahead.
They want a hero class because when the victim becomes a victim, who are they going to turn to for help? The government. So the government becomes the hero and everything. Sorry,
and why is that?
Because it's easier to control.
Exactly.
If you guys are all dependent on stopping by my house to get your lunch in the morning before you go to work, I own you.
Yep.
They're the hero until they choose not to be. What do the police say? When seconds count, we're minutes away, right? They're even admitting they cannot be everywhere at once. And how many times has the government dropped the ball when there's been some sort of national disaster? I mean, hell, the government shut down right now. Now, I realize that's a political thing. It happens all the time. But it's just the whole point of the government is not big enough, omnipresent enough, they're not reliable enough that they could do what they're trying to do. Now, I don't mean they can't disarm us all. Well, even that's, there's some conjecture about that. But I'm just saying, if they really wanted us to be that dependent on us, they don't even have what it takes to truly make every victim dependent on the government. So they're trying to create something they can't even facilitate.
It's just to elaborate on the government shutdown. I do believe it is now over.
Yeah, I heard something about that.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Sarge went to Hoover Dam today, so I guess maybe it is, right? The damn thing's open.
Yeah, I'd heard something about that. I didn't read into it, though. I was too busy getting all this stuff ready.
I got an 11-minute update ago. 11 minutes ago, Congress agreed to end the longest government shutdown.
Okay. Who caved?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't follow it yet.
Okay. Calaveras, the 32 special, the tactical pickle says, and the courts have ruled that cops are not obligated to use their firearm to protect citizens. Yep, they've ruled that over and over and over again.
Real quick on the shutdown. The shutdown's temporary. It's going to last for roughly 3 weeks, I think. February 18th-ish, 15th, something like that.
Okay.
So they're supposed to negotiate in between there. Trump said, if we don't negotiate and come up with something, I'll shut the government down again or I'll declare an emergency. So nobody technically caved. I guess Trump kind of did, but...
Was it just to allow funding?
Yeah, basically allow funding and get people paid. So I think that's a check mark on his side. He said, I'll take this one on the chin and get people their paychecks.
Yeah.
So we're not going to get the wall?
Not on this one, no.
Not for 2 more weeks, anyway.
No, there goes that idea of the contractor's job down in Arizona.
What scares me about this situation, and it's kind of an aside from the Second Amendment thing, but not really because it does tie in together, is this whole declaration of an emergency thing. If Trump declares a national emergency and uses that to build the wall, I'm terrified of that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm for building a wall. I'm for making it more difficult for people to come here illegally. I want people to come here legally and be Americans and all that. But to have it done via the president declaring a national emergency and kind of ruling by fiat there is dangerous. Because what happens when, say, President Bloomberg decides that gun violence, quote unquote, is a national emergency and we need to do something? And he then declares it a national emergency and takes those powers and bans this, that, and the other thing with the stroke of a pen, with a socialist House and Senate that aren't going to stop him. We're screwed.
That's definitely true. The one thing that
we do not want this to be done by Trump declaring an emergency. That's a fact.
I don't really know that he can, because most of the property not most of the property, but a large chunk of the property that the wall would go is private property. So
I don't know about that. Most of the land on the border in Arizona is federal.
Yeah. Well, there's a bunch of, I'm just going by what the news reports are saying. So, you might be right and I might be wrong, but just going by what I was hearing on different news today, a bunch of it's private property, and multiple different people own different parts of it. So, like, lot number 1 is John's, lot number 2 is Kevin's, lot number 3 is Sally's. So the government would have to negotiate each one of those for the price of their property.
Well, they can condemn it for what's that, habeas corpus or whatever it is, where we need to run a freeway through here. So
eminent domain.
Eminent domain. Thank you. Yeah, it was one of those things.
That's the danger about it, is if he does declare it an emergency, in that emergency writing, he could just say basically screw your property rights.
Well, he's gonna run it through an Indian reservation, a national park, and a bombing range. So,
and ultimately, Budget had it nailed right to the top. We got to be careful for what we push for now. That's not legal. Executive orders and all this other stuff by fiat can all just be changed. Look at all the executive orders that Trump took away from Obama in the short time he's been president. So when Michael Bloomberg becomes president and he takes your 20-ounce soda and your 20-round magazines.
Yeah, exactly. Be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. And that would be horrible. I think, anyway.
And I think, I'm not for red flag laws whatsoever, but I do believe that there is some kind of, after a lot of these, horrific attacks and terrorist attacks and stuff like that, people are like, well, if you knew something, you should have said something so that police could have just showed up at his door. There is still that, but I think they justified red flag laws for that reason, or partially for that reason, which is also kind of like, we as gun owners would say it too. If you knew this guy was a danger, like an actual danger, before he actually ever did anything, you would actually have to prove that he's in some kind of danger to society. With red flag laws, again, I'm absolutely not for it, but it kind of plays into trying to prove that someone's dangerous before they commit a crime.
Well, this is all because of that shitbag who shot up that school in Florida. They went to his house 39 times. They knew. Okay, the red flag laws, the way they're written, don't address that. They really don't. They just go, somebody says something, we're going to come, take your guns, because obviously you're this guy. Wait, whoa, hold up. You need to, this is America. We, our freedoms our due process and our freedoms are the most important thing. Thank you, Steph. So, if they want to use this case in Florida as an example, then let's take a look at their history. Do they have a criminal record? Have they had the police called on them? What have they been? Do we need to have detectives keep an eye on them for a while? Whatever it is, and they should get go through a judge and get a warrant. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. If you want to say, we knew about it, we didn't do anything, and this tragedy happened. Therefore, from now on, when we know about it, we're going to do something. So let's come up with this law that doesn't address that at all. Do you see what I mean?
You know what it kind of reminds me of? It's kind of a little off of it, but I think it was the movie was called Minority Report, where there were officers that went back in time and just basically arrested people for crimes that they committed in the future, or something like that.
Yeah, they had these people that could see into the future, and they predicted that if someone would commit, like a murder or whatever crime, and then the police would go arrest them before they could do it. Yeah, exactly, and that's what they want to think we're living in that world where we have psychics who can predict that kind of stuff, and we just don't. You can't. Yeah. You can't. Yeah. Vast Matrix says the precogs. Exactly.
What about
precognition? Doesn't actually work.
What about all the? I mean, Budgie brought it up just a minute ago with the jerk off down in Florida, but I mean, go back to any of the news, any of the terrorist attacks or domestic terrorist attacks or any of that stuff. And what's the first line in the news always say? The FBI had their sights on him. The FBI had them in their book. Well, if the FBI knew so much about the Sarnav brothers, why'd they let them blow up the Boston Parade?
Well, that's the same thing with the way these red flag laws. There's no penalty for committing or for filing a false police report. I think there needs to be a heavy penalty for calling in one of these red flag laws on somebody, and then they find out they're innocent, including paying the entire cost of everything leading up to the point where they get their property back. But the other part of that is, if you are in law enforcement and you know this guy is a danger and you choose to do nothing, you should be incarcerated. You see those FBI agents and those people that were making the calls to, oh no, let's sweep this under, because we don't want to make this area look bad. We're trying to get funding for the schools. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. All those guys should be in jail right now.
Every single one.
For some, what is there, some sort of like involuntary manslaughter or something where their inaction caused the death. They are responsible for this as much as the shitbag with the gun.
I mean, if at the very least, at least fired or stripped of their any kind of, what they have. That's
what I was going to your point, Square. But it's called dereliction of duty, and it's a subcategory of conduct unbecoming of a law enforcement officer. Number one. Yeah. Number two, on the Florida thing, the FBI went and had all this evidence. What they could have done, and I talked to a friend of mine about this. What they could have done, very simply, they had the social media posts. They could have went to the state police, sheriff's department, or local law enforcement, go pick him up for a Baker Act, which is a psychological evaluation, anywhere from 24 to 96 hours, stuck him in a loony bin, took that evidence and the fact they just put him in a psych hold, gone to a court, those FBI agents with that law enforcement officer, whether it's state, county, or local, seed the affidavit to get a warrant to search for firearms because the evidence on social media was enough for reasonable articulated suspicion that he is a danger to himself or others. You don't need no red flag law. That is complete and utter BS. They could have done that if he passed the psych eval. He could have petitioned the courts to get his weapons back through the legal process, or the judge could have said, you know what, pending the investigation, we're going to suspend your rights for 120 days, which is legal. I'll make this clear. Legal. Does not violate any constitutional rights. It's legal by Florida law. If he failed the psych eval, he gets put into the system automatic as a prohibited person. His guns are gone. He can't buy a gun legally. Does that stop him from getting a gun? No. But there is a legal process they could have done. Nobody did what they were supposed to do.
But the thing is, and Vash Matrix out in the chat hits this. He hit this nail squarely on the head. Red flags are meant to overexpense the owner. Red flags are not about, and maybe my tinfoil hat is showing here, but I believe that the red flag laws are not about saving anybody. Again, it goes back to gun control is never about the gun. It's always about the control. Red flag laws are meant to get people that they could not prove that they're unfit to own a firearm. They're meant so that they can confiscate the firearms from people that they couldn't otherwise legally prove that shouldn't have them, so that those people then have to go through the expenditure of fighting this and trying to get their rights back, and it's a deterrent against ownership. That's all it is. There's a piece from Breitbart talking about gun control fail. It's entitled "Gun Control Fail: Red Flag Law Waiting Periods Fail to Stop Florida Bank Massacre." For those of you who don't know, on January 22nd, it was Wednesday. When was Wednesday? Wednesday was the 23rd. So on the 23rd, this past Wednesday, there was a incident at the SunTrust Bank in Sebring, Florida, where several people were killed. And this article goes on to say, Florida's red flag law and waiting period for gun purchases failed to stop the horrendous massacre at SunTrust Bank in Sebring, Florida on Wednesday. Breitbart News reported that Governor Rick Scott signed a $400 million gun control package just weeks after the February 14, 2018 Parkland High School shooting. That package included a red flag law empowering judges to issue firearm confiscation orders for persons believed to be a danger to themselves or others. CBS News reports that the gun control package also applied waiting periods to long gun purchases. Prior to the Parkland attack, waiting periods only applied to handgun purchases in Florida. The minimum age for long gun purchases was raised to 21 in the gun control package as well, but none of the controls prevented 21-year-old Zeven Zaver from attacking the bank. The New York Times reports that he opened fire, then called the police and said, "I've shot 5 people." Police have not uncovered a motive for the attack. Zaver is being held in the Highland County Jail and was denied bail during a Thursday morning court appearance. So, even with all that stuff in place, they didn't do anything. Again, gun control is never about the gun. It is always about the control. They don't give a rat's ass about stopping crime or saving lives or any of that. Period.
True story.
And I would like to add something. Is that okay?
Go right ahead. That's why you're on the panel.
So, apart from, Illinois, but I looked on Gun Owners America's website. There's an article. William Bill Barr, Trump's nominee for Attorney General again. This guy has already had a term. Now he wants another term. This guy is all for more red flag laws being spread all across the United States. This guy here was held responsible for the deaths of Ruby Ridge. Honestly, this guy has to be reelected for another term for Attorney General? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I've never known Trump to be actually for guns and all the other crap he can be political about with the NRA, and he's on the NRA side. When you look at it all in reality, he still doesn't allow guns in his hotels, as he said he would during his debates. You're like, oh, Trump, if you're so pro-gun, will you allow guns in your hotels now? Yeah, I could think about that. No, he didn't. I don't think Trump is actually on our side at all.
No.
No,
anyone.
New York City carry permit.
Go ahead.
He's got a New York City carry permit, though.
Yeah.
Of course he does. What's good for him is not for us.
Well, he's rich enough to afford it and powerful enough to afford it.
Yeah, if I can afford a bodyguard with a couple of SIG guns.
Secret Service?
Yeah, I'd do it too. And I'd have one.
Anyone that thinks Trump is an actual friend to the Second Amendment is probably not paying attention. However, and I hate to say this, but it's the absolute truth, the alternative was far worse. And one thing that we're getting for this, and I've said it before, again, and I'll say it again, is that electing Donald Trump puts the Supreme Court in a far better place, at least from our perspective, than a Hillary Clinton picked Supreme Court would have been.
Well, yeah,
And that's where we're going to win this thing, unless it gets to the point where, you know, we get a President Bloomberg and a socialist-controlled House and socialist-controlled Senate, and the Supreme Court rules against them, and they decide that they're going to ignore the Supreme Court and do what they want to do anyway, because, you know, let's face it, how many troops does the Supreme Court command? You know, that's when we have to decide where our line is. And for me, when they start ignoring the Supreme Court, that's when I will take whatever measures I deem appropriate at that point.
Well, one thing you can bet on for sure is lawmakers don't care about the law. I've said it many, many times. Only us doofuses on the chat and in the chat, or on the panel and in the chat, care about the laws. The cops don't care about the laws. Your mayor doesn't care about the laws. Your governor, your alderman, your senator, your president, none of them people give a crap about the law. Only idiots like us do. Because we're the idiots that are going to get clumped over the head and put in a jail cell. And then, like Squibb always talks about, we're going to sit there in our jail cell wondering who's taking care of our kids right now. I don't have kids, but you guys know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing with all these new laws coming about in Illinois and all that stuff. You got to look at who is going to be enforcing them or what oaths they've taken, and to say, who are they? They're not me and you. They're guys that are going to say, well, I'm just doing my job, and this is my job, and this is what I'm going to do. And they're going to enforce these laws that are coming about. In reality, they should just be denying the enforcement of these laws and speak up for us. In reality, a lot of them own the same firearms that we do. Not all of them, but in the same sense, it would be kind of nice to have some kind of law enforcement on your side to say, you need to talk to your brothers. You're all brothers, aren't you? You law enforcement, you're all brothers, aren't you? Go talk to your brother. Why are you doing this? You're enforcing laws that are unconstitutional. You're putting the blame on the citizens instead of putting the blame on the government who's actually trying to introduce these laws. They need to look at themselves and understand that what they're doing is against everything that they're actually fighting. They're working for, you know, to serve and protect. You're not protecting citizens by taking away their guns. So, you know, you law enforcement out there, if you're all listening, if anybody's listening, go talk to your brothers. Go stand up for what you believe in as your oath that you took. You know, you might have some more pull than we do, obviously.
And they're not going to protect their brothers if they send them to Joe Schmo's door looking to get his guns illegally. Because there's a lot of people out there that are not going to stand for it. And you're going to have a lot of dead cops, a lot of dead citizens, a lot of dead everybody. And
and all for what? Because some politician said that I should have known this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's not a politician.
Something that I owned yesterday legally and bought 10 years ago lawfully.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, bump stocks?
So is that how it all starts? So let's say there's a confiscation here, there's a confiscation there. It makes the news, it doesn't make the news, whatever. But it kind of gets overlooked because it's here and there and here and there. And then one day they make a confiscation and the guy fights back. And it's loud and it's big, and the SWAT team's surrounding the house, and the cops are afraid to go in there because they've been told he's got an arsenal and he's ex-military or something like that. And next thing you know, the news chopper, you know, somebody calls it in, the news chopper's overhead. You got 3 news vans outside. It's on national TV, and it makes such a big scene like Waco or Ruby Ridge. And I'm not calling those, you know, good guy versus bad guy. I'm just saying they make a big scene like that. And now, after an event like that, every gun owner is scared that that's what's going to happen to them. So how many of them say, screw it, I'm done? And how many of them say, if it doesn't happen to me, but it happens to my friend down the street, when they go to kick in his door, if I see it, I'm going down there. And before you know it, there's an incident where they go to get somebody's stuff, and his neighbors come to help, or her neighbors come to help. And before you know it, the whole damn street's fighting, and it turns into a big event, and then it really, really catches national attention where, what are we doing? We're having
more than 1 or 2 of those confiscations for that to happen, though. The average isn't going to do it.
Well,
they'd have to start doing it all over the place before people would wake up and stand up.
Well, how many of you guys heard about Mr. Willis on your local news? Or did you hear about it on one of us from the internet? You know?
Oh, the only place you hear about it's on the internet.
I live.
The only thing about him is that, and I'm the kind of person that sometimes the ends justify the means, and sometimes they do not. In this case, I do not feel it did. I'm not completely sure if he wasn't truly guilty of something bad, but I don't have enough information on that. Despite that, the way they handled it and what they did aren't an ends to a means, a justifiable ends to a means. There are some times where bending the rules to save lives is not a bad thing. Where bending the rules to get the job done is not a bad thing. And then there's other times where you compromise your morality and everything you stand for, and it's not a good thing. In this case, I think that's what it was. Whether this guy was truly a bad guy or not, he wasn't doing any harm to anybody at that particular moment. They should have handled this differently. Well, because remember, they had a warrant, a summons. They weren't there to take his guns. They had a summons. Why was he being summoned? Right? So I'm not saying, but despite the fact that in some cases, I understand that there are some necessary evils and there's some times where we bend the rules. This was definitely not that case. Well, I think that they'll try to sweep any screw ups under the rug that they can, but you're not going to sweep everything up. We've got way too much communication these days. Everybody's got a cell phone or two. Everybody's got the internet. Everybody's got a tablet or an iPad. There are cameras everywhere today. They cannot hide this stuff. So even if it is at a local level, I mean, look, I found out from you guys. I found out from being how many people go online for their information about their gun rights. As long as we keep the social media thing going, and as long as we've got this 24-hour news cycle that vilifies us, why don't we flip it and use it against them to show when there's injustices committed? Why not?
Well, that's why I do this show. You know, that's why the last thing I end with is the self-defense shout-outs to spread that word, because the national media does not. I have to go through different local news organs to try to comb the internet for these things, because you're not told about it. You know, one of the self-defense shout-outs tonight is about a guy in Houston who defended himself against 5 home invaders. I'll just go ahead and read that right now. For those of you who are new to the show or who haven't stuck around to the end, this is the segment called Self-Defense Shoutouts. It is not me reveling in the death or injury of the bad guy. It is me reveling in the fact that the good guy had the means, method, and opportunity to defend himself against the bad guy. It's about the good guy continuing to be alive and continuing to be in good health, and the bad guy not being able to deprive him of either one. So the first one I'm going to talk about here is this home invasion. This is from an article from the Associated Press in Houston. Police, 3 home invasion suspects shot and killed in Houston. Police in Houston say that 3 people were shot and killed during an early morning home invasion east of downtown. This is from January 19th. Authorities say a preliminary investigation appears to show that an armed resident of the home defended himself by firing on at least 4 suspects who stormed the residence early Saturday. Police found the body of one suspect outside in front of the home. Another suspect who fled collapsed nearby and died. Authorities say the body of a third suspect was found in a vehicle that fled the scene. At least one other suspect was also shot and was taken to a hospital for treatment. A resident of the home was not injured. It's not clear why the suspects targeted the home, and police did not release any additional information. Now, with this incident, this article by the AP is leaving something out. The articles by the local news organs are leaving things out. If I hadn't listened to Armed American Radio, I wouldn't know the fact that this guy used an AK-47 with a dreaded 30-round magazine to defend himself against these 5 guys. I'm trying to find a news article that mentions that, and you can't, because they're deliberately leaving that bit of information out because it doesn't further the narrative. Yes, A&A news organ, deal with it. But You know, that's what we're talking about. You're not going to hear it unless you hear it from somebody other than the traditional media, because they don't want you to hear it. And that's why shows like this, shows like Night Strikes, you know, the Modern Anti-Federalists, This Week in Stupid, you know, all these other shows that we're doing here on the internet, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, every place that these things get done. That's why this stuff's so important.
I'll steal the quote from my favorite radio host one more time. If you get a chance to listen to him, check out Chris Plant's radio show. But he says the most insidious power that the news media has is the power to ignore.
Yep.
The one thing in this, though, is that they still have control over the media, even social media.
Yep.
I mean, what's going on with all the gun channels and everything being doxxed or being tagged, being stricken of their First Amendment right, even though, you know, YouTube recently put out this little, you know, mission statement how, oh, everybody has a right to free speech and blah, this and that, unless you're a conservative gun owner.
Yep.
That's why we need to promote. And I get it. Please, I get it. YouTube's the biggest guy in town. YouTube. But, you know, Night Strike made up this wonderful place called guntube.org. And I get it. Guntube.org isn't YouTube yet. It's not even Gunstreamer yet. But if we use it and we promote it and we support it, it will be. You know, and we have gunchannels.com. We have gunstreamer.com. You know, if we start pushing people in those directions, you know, if the only place that I can find, and I'm not saying, I'm just making it up in my head, but if the only place that I can find the right of the people is on Gunstreamer or GunTube, guess what I'm doing? I'm going to Gunstreamer or GunTube.
And here's the thing, more than just, you know, a couple of them too. You know, you got Gunstreamer, gun websites, you know, GunTube, you got Full 30, you got, you know, I mean, there's, you know, it's not like there's just one or two. No, there's several of them. And actually, everybody should be a part of every one of those and support all of them. You know, just like people are saying, oh, you know, NRA bad, you know, blah, whatever. Yeah, but you know what? NRA has still been around. They've been around for a while. They're still kind of the big dog. You know, if you don't want to support them, that's fine. But here's the thing. They're not the only ones. Support all of them. Support as many as you can, because the more support we have, the better.
Yep, absolutely right. Particularly in the days to come.
We're going to need the support we can get.
Absolutely. Going on with self-defense shout-outs. This is from Huntsville, Alabama, January 17th, 2019. Worker shot man who opened fire in IHOP. Police say a fatal shooting in an Alabama IHOP began when the customer started shooting at employees, and a wounded restaurant worker shot and killed the customer in self-defense. The Huntsville Police Department on Thursday identified the two people killed in the Wednesday night shooting as IHOP employee Roy Brown and customer Roderick Turner. Brown was 56, Turner was 25. In a statement, police said Turner was picking up a carryout order and became disruptive and loud regarding the service at the business. After a confrontation, police said Turner pulled a handgun and started firing at employees, striking Brown and another worker. Police said the wounded employee then pulled a handgun and shot the customer shooter in self-defense of others. Self-defense of others. Okay. Police did not release the name of the employee. Police said they do not anticipate any arrests, but a grand jury will review the shooting. And finally, last but not least, this is from January 22nd, 2019, WDSU. Would-be robber shot, killed by pharmacist in St. Charles Parish, officials say. A St. Charles Parish pharmacist shot and killed a would-be robber Monday evening when the culprit demanded drugs at gunpoint, officials said. The attempted robbery was reported just before 6 p.m. at the Thrift Village drugstore on Paul Maillard Road in Luling, according to the St. Charles Parish Sheriff's Office. Investigators said the culprit, who was masked and in black clothing, entered the store with a handgun. The man ordered the clerk and the pharmacist behind the counter and demanded drugs, officials said. In an update Tuesday, officials said the suspect used a zip tie on the clerk's hands. The pharmacist was able to get his gun before the suspect used a zip tie on him, according to officials. The two got into a scuffle, and the suspect ran toward the front door, followed by the pharmacist, who tried to lock the door, officials said. The suspect then turned back toward the pharmacist, charging him, and was then shot in the leg by the pharmacist, investigators said in an update. The suspect ran outside the store and collapsed about 100 yards in the back of the strip mall. The sheriff's office pronounced the man dead at the scene. Officials identified the suspect as Mark Fisher Jr. The coroner's office determined the suspect was shot once in the femoral artery. The sheriff's office does not expect, at this point, to file criminal charges against the pharmacist. Officials said all evidence shows the pharmacist and the store clerk's lives were in imminent danger, and the shooting was justified, according to police. So, despite what the media would have you think, the good guy with a gun absolutely does exist. And that's why I do this every week. 2, 3, 4, sometimes more examples of good guys with a gun stopping the bad guys with a gun within that week. We're going to go ahead and roll up the sidewalks and shut the doors. But first, I want to go ahead and go through the panel. Thank you guys for coming. Warsaw Patriot, anything you'd like to leave us with, sir?
Not much, but I would say, guys, we got to speak out. Contact your senators and representatives and just speak out, man. We got to fight this. This is like the same BS that was filled in California and New York. Illinois cannot die like this. We got to fight like the good fight, guys. This is a big one, and we got to push hard. Even though GOA is on our side, we still got to do our part. And again, I appreciate having me on appreciate you having me on the panel tonight.
Sure, no problem. Stealth Hunter, anything you'd like to leave us with, sir?
Yeah.
Thank you for the invite, everybody. Like Warsaw said, be vigilant, step up. Please learn so you can do more. I will say that because there's a lot of people who, again, myself is included, we still need to learn more. So when we step up and fight, we're doing the best thing that we can do to take the fight to these crazy fools thinking they're going to do what they want to do because they can make a law. That's all I got for you.
All right. Michael Sains, anything you want to leave us with, sir?
I'm just going to reiterate what Warsaw Patriot said and what Stealth Hunter said. Now's the time. We need to get off our ass. We need to do something. We need to be more vocal, more active. Pick up a copy of the Constitution and study it front to back. This is not just an attack on the Second Amendment. It is attack on the First, Second, Third, Fourth, Fifth, so on, so on. Knowledge is power, and we need to use that knowledge wisely. We need to start organizing locally and branch out from there. I mean, earlier I was in another live stream, and I said, well, you need to focus on local. And I got kind of chewed out, and they were like, oh, well, we got all this other stuff going on. Oh, okay, yeah, I understand that. But you know what? You're not going to drive from your state that your resident state all the way out to Washington every freaking weekend. But you can go to your state's capital and make yourself seen, make yourself heard, and make your senators and your Congress people and your state governors, and moreover, your county sheriffs and local sheriff's departments aware that, we're not going to stand for this. We, the people, have the power. And it's time we take it back. And it's time we make them aware that they work for us, not the other way around.
Absolutely right. Kingpin, any plugs, last words of wisdom?
Yeah, I agree with Michael. You guys have heard me say it a trillion times. State laws are easy to make. They're easy to change. You get hundreds of new state laws all the time. Federal laws, just look at what's happening now with Pelosi and Trump and McConnell. Nothing gets done on the federal level. So I'm not saying ignore the federal level, but you better not ignore what's happening in your own backyard. Because if you will become Maryland, keep saying it's not going to happen here. Keep saying that we got Republicans. You will be Maryland. Look at Calaveras. You will be California. Look at AWAG 1000. You will be New Jersey. Say it won't happen. Sit back on your butt and oh, we love guns here. Da, da, da. No, you will fall just like we did if you're not vigilant. Whatever, you know what the word I'm looking for.
Sure.
And then the last thing I want to say is make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Budget Guns and Gears Review. And come check us out every Friday night on The Right of the People. I don't think Budget would be upset if you watched the live stream over on Gun Channels.
Nope.
I'm just saying. And if you went over to Gunstreamer or GunTube and watched some of his earlier posted videos, I don't think he'd be upset with you.
Nope.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Hey, no problem, man. Thanks for coming. As always, I want to thank everybody out there in the chat, particularly those of you who stuck from beginning to end. I am always humbled and amazed that any of you have decided to spend this hour with me, listening to me blather on about whatever's made me mad this week. The show is what it is because of you. You know, I can't say thank you enough. He had to leave apparently, but everybody out there who isn't subscribed to Ryan over at ZRUS Outdoors should go over there and give him a sub. He's got some great content. You know, check him out, man. You definitely will not regret it. As always, I want to leave you with the encouragement to contact your local, state, and federal Congress critters and elected representatives. Let them know what you think. Make sure that they understand that the watchful eye is definitely upon them. Send them email, snail mail, telephone, telegraph, semaphore, heliograph, smoke signals, carrier pigeons, bicycle messengers, whatever you have to do to let them know that you will never, ever, ever give up the fight.